Hi, and welcome back to Tech Talk. I'm Ken Mingus, Executive Editor, Computer World. I'm here with Macworld, PC World's Michael Simon today.
Nope.
We're going to answer your questions for some common questions about Apple's iOS. Just a quick reminder, we're streaming live on our YouTube channel, the IDG Tech Talk YouTube channel, and on the LinkedIn Live page for Computer World. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel. Please follow the Computer World page. If you've got questions for us we might be able to get to while we're on the air, we'll try to answer them, so please leave them in the comments field. And if we can't answer them now, we'll try to circle back and answer them in the comments, so later on you can check back. So, Michael, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Oh, cool. It feels like back together again. Questions, iOS questions. These are common questions that people have about iOS, and we thought it'd be good to sort of get out of the way. First, how quickly should I update to the latest version of iOS? I would say pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a grace period.
Wait for the point one?
I mean, but if everybody waits, then no one does it.
Yeah.
But there are always, not always, there are often little things that pop up. Sometimes major things.
That's
that
really
pop
been
up.
the case this year. It seems like iOS 13 and 13.
It was worse last year.
Well, yeah. But even this year, though, there have been a variety of point 1 and point 11 updates to sort of fix a few glitches along the way.
One thing we haven't had this year is like that big headline grabbing snafu. Like last year, like some people couldn't make calls.
Right.
That
is a problem on your phone.
In the iPhone 10, there was a problem with the touch thing with cold weather.
Yep.
Like there have been major issues related to iOS upgrades that people have. In some cases, like their phones are completely bricked.
Yeah.
That's fairly uncommon.
And this year there have not been issues like that. The minor things that have come up.
There haven't been. In fact, we've gotten point upgrades, and no one really knows why.
Yeah.
Like Apple is they try to stay ahead of these things as much as they can. I mean, they're pushing out iOS upgrades to hundreds of millions of devices. I mean, it is incredibly impressive, the scale and the just the breadth that these things have to reach. People say, "Oh, it's just an iPhone." No. There's an iPhone 11, there's an iPhone 10, there's an iPhone 10s, there's an iPhone 8, an iPhone 7, iPhone 6. I mean, they're pushing out to all different, and each one has a little, slightly different tweaks, different features, different things. And they, so the percentage of problems are extraordinarily small.
Given the size, the scale of the number of phones that are getting
generally, when you see a new update come in, it's either something security or something that was broken or a brand new feature. So you're probably going to. I would say to anyone who asks me that question, yes, upgrade when you see it.
And Apple pushes these things out very quickly.
When there's a problem, they push it out even quicker.
They do. But it's interesting, every time we get to the fall when a new version of iOS comes out, and I take a look at the adoption rates on the Apple side for iOS compared to the latest version of Android. And usually by this time of year, and I think this is true, 50 to 60% of iPhone users have already upgraded.
At least.
At least.
Yeah.
It takes off like a
I mean,
rocket.
it's slightly unfair because Android, when Google puts out a new version of Android, it goes to a very small percentage of phones and even smaller percentage of users who use those phones.
Yeah.
We're talking about a couple of Pixel phones, maybe a OnePlus phone, maybe an Essential phone, and that's it.
Yeah.
Samsung, LG, the big manufacturers, they do it on their own terms. Yeah. And to Samsung's credit, they have their version that's not, their version of Android is separate from Google's version of Android.
Right.
So, like the features in our Android 10, like some of them are already in Samsung's operating system in Android 9. So, they do things differently.
Yeah.
And when you see those adoption rates, I mean, it's highly skewed.
Yeah.
It's not just that people are seeing it and not upgrading; it's that they don't
have
it.
It's not there.
But security updates on Android are coming faster. They've gotten a lot better with making sure that your version of the Android operating system is secure.
Yeah.
So at least there's that.
Okay, good. All right, so that's
I know this is an iOS thing,
well,
but I had to
okay.
defend Android a little
Talking
bit.
about iOS, which we're supposed to be talking about. No, we're answering iOS questions. So the answer is basically go ahead and update.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't tell anyone not to upgrade. If you want to wait a day, read,
because if there's going to be a problem, you'll hear about it.
But that's the thing. You're going to have to do some homework to reach the level where it's on like the night TV news. Yeah. It's got to be a big issue.
That would be a big problem.
So you're going to have to read Macworld.com or ComputerWorld.com to find like these little problems that they're generally not super widespread. And if they are, Apple immediately pulls it.
Yeah.
A day or two, they put out a new one, and it's fine.
fixed. Okay. So
So
quick
yeah, I
upgrades.
would say definitely, as a matter of rule, a matter of course, if you see an upgrade, press the button.
Okay, cool. Question 2. Why did Apple separate iOS for phones from the new iPad OS for tablets?
Well, I mean, there's two ways of thinking of this: the cynical me and the practical.
Well, let's
me.
go with cynical you first. 'cause
Cynical
that's-
me just as marketing.
Okay.
You know, they did it so they can say, "Look, we have a brand new operating system for the iPad, and it's now a computer."
Okay.
Which is not.
I think
and
that's
they
too
don't.
cynical, but okay. And what's non-cynical you say?
Is that they did it
They're separating the
right? They did it because the
This
iPad
is not
isn't-
this.
It's not a phone.
right.
And what was
And
really
they're trying to make this more business friendly. I mean, with
Absolutely.
the features that they've added to it, the split
why
screen
it
slide
took
over.
this long, I don't know.
Well,
I mean, let's not forget when the iPad came out, it literally ran iPhone OS. It was
Correct.
called iPhone OS. It didn't become iOS for a couple of versions.
yeah.
And the biggest criticism for the iPad, and it was a valid one, was that it's a big phone.
Yeah.
And that was
That
the,
doesn't make
that was
phone
the
calls
point.
or didn't make phone calls.
Right, it didn't make phone calls. When Steve Jobs designed it or
Johnny
conceived it or whatever
Yeah.
you want to say, that was the point. To take the ease of this
And
and
make it
turn it
big.
into something that you can sit on your couch and use. He said, you know, you're holding the internet in your hand. It was a full screen device. It wasn't supposed to be a computer.
Right.
In fact, when they introduced it, they had the thing on the board. They have a MacBook here and we have a phone here. What's in between?
Yep,
To do
iPad.
the ease of this
Yep.
and the comfort of this.
Yeah.
And that's what they delivered. Over time, the iPad, from A, how people use it, and B, the power that it brings now, it's not a phone.
Well, I mean, you
We
literally
use it in
stack these
completely
up,
different
you know?
ways.
I mean, you've got a MacBook 13, and this is a the
yeah,
iPad
right.
Pro.
It's
basically
a 12.9 inch screen and 13.1
know,
inch screen.
I
But
mean-
you know, now this has USB-C. It has a keyboard. It has pencil support. It's so far removed from iOS, what we think of iPhone. It only makes sense that they will separate them. Now the question is, they're separated out, but they're very similar.
Yeah.
When does that truly break?
Yeah, I'm waiting
and
for them
we
to-
see iOS over here and iPad splintering off into its own
I don't think you're going to see
thing.
that for years.
I think it's going to take a
several
while
years.
too.
Yeah.
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 But right now, you know, there's a couple of little things. You got the widgets on the home screen and more apps and blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm waiting for the day when iPad. Oh, I forgot the name of it for a second.
iPad OS.
It's very simple, but I
Yeah,
just.
I'm glad we
blanked.
have the expert here. iPad OS
When
and iOS.
iPad OS becomes that hybrid operating system we wanted for a long time now.
Okay.
Not quite a Mac, not quite an iPhone, something that does both things, you know, better.
Have I got a question for you?
Yeah, sure.
Question 3.
Are you just cutting me off?
No, no. This is related. I've heard that Apple is taking steps to merge iOS and Mac OS.
Yes.
Is that true?
I mean,
That was a big talk about you know,
It
that
was.
was the whole
It-
thing at
it was a
WWDC and developers, and that you can write once and, you know, it can
yeah,
go off.
they're merging in the sense that Apple's not stupid.
You know.
They know that iOS is enormously popular, way more popular than the Mac.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
The
even
point is
close.
basically to bring more iOS apps to the Mac
Yes.
than Mac apps to
Apple
iOS.
does not want people to buy an iPhone.
Yeah.
And then say, oh, you know what? I'm going to buy a Mac too. And then sit down and just be like, whoa, how do I use this?
This isn't working. Yeah.
Yeah. They want there to be a synergy for sure. And, you know, part of that has been, you know, gradually they brought the notification center over. They brought FaceTime over. You know, they every year, every version.
To the Mac, you mean?
Yeah.
From mobile to Mac.
In fact, there was a thing they called Back to the Mac a couple years ago, where they actually physically, literally lifted features from the iPhone and put them on the Mac. The ones that make sense.
Yeah.
And now they're saying that can apply to basically any iOS app. And here's how. And they released the was it Catalyst.
Catalyst.
And you know, developers can take their iOS apps and relatively easily. I'm not a developer, but I've read that the code and what they had to do, the work they have to do, isn't
It's not like a
as
whole
much heavy
rewrite.
lifting as it would have been, right?
Right.
If they had to write a whole new Mac app. So they're letting you say, so let's say you have a calendar app that you like on your iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving developers the opportunity and encouraging them to bring it to the Mac
Yeah.
in an easy way, in a friendly way. So people can sit down at their computer, and it seems like they're devices that are working together.
And working the same way.
Yeah. Now, Samsung, to go back to Android a little
Uh-oh.
bit,
Here we go.
they have something
Yes.
called Dex.
Okay.
So you can literally take your phone,
Yeah.
plug it into the Mac, and it works on a Mac,
Okay.
and you get a whole new interface. in a little window.
Yeah.
That's your phone.
It's all coming off the phone.
Yes, and
Yeah.
you can drag and drop and do
Yeah.
all this stuff. I don't know that Apple's ever going to reach that point.
Well, but you do have Sidecar now, where you can set up your, if you're running Catalina on your Mac
Yep.
and you want to have your iPad,
The iPad.
as an ancillary screen.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and which is very cool. And it's,
Yeah.
I mean, probably 5% of people are going to use it. I mean, it's a pretty small
Yeah.
number of people, but yeah, that's a very cool feature. I'm talking about like turning this into a computer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Apple wants to reach that level
Yeah.
where it's an actual merging of the whole.
That just
thing.
sounds like
Things
something that would
start
be
to get
really
messy.
fuzzy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see Apple doing that.
And like even with something like iCloud, like they've resisted, like Google Drive, for example, is, everywhere, and files work everywhere, and like iCloud is a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah.
And I think Apple is purposefully keeping those things separate. I think at one point down the line, there will be a device that we haven't seen yet
Glasses,
that
perhaps?
brings maybe it's not this form factor, maybe it's, who
I'm
knows?
thinking something different. Yeah.
But it's not going to be, here's a MacBook that runs iOS or
No.
hybrid iOS, whatever it is. It's going to be the future of all this
iPad,
stuff.
Mac, iOS, OS.
Something's yeah.
Okay.
Something that they can market well, and say that they're the first person to do it, and it's easy and wonderful. And I don't think it's going to happen next year or even in a couple of years, but
Within 5 years, maybe.
maybe so.
Yeah.
But they're like all of these things can do so many things that are starting to overlap that I think at some point all this is going to go away.
And you'll just have your
And there'll
device
be
and it'll
something
run
that does
one iOS or one OS to
one
rule them all?
OS, yeah.
To rule them all? Okay.
With little interaction and a lot of AI and all that other stuff. But I don't think we're going to ever get to the point where there's a touchscreen on a Mac that operates like our iPhone. Apple has said enough times where I'm starting to believe them. I know they say a lot,
Yeah.
and they change their mind a lot, but I don't think there's ever going to be touch. I'd like it.
I know.
I want it.
Yeah.
I've said that for a long time. I just wrote an article last week saying that the new MacBook is garbage because it doesn't have a touch screen.
No, we'll talk. That'll be a different debate. I just bought a new MacBook, so that's why
But
he's saying
if
that.
you're waiting for a true merging of Mac OS and iOS in the sense like a Surface,
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
I just don't see it.
Okay. If you're just tuning in, we're answering questions about iOS. Question 4. I don't like having my conversations with Siri listened to. How do I turn that off?
Yeah, well,
Privacy, right? Privacy settings on iOS?
Assuming that's talking about like you want to leave Siri on, but you don't want people listening to you. Now, so let's explain where this question
Yep,
comes
go ahead.
from. A couple months ago, maybe?
Yep.
Month or so ago, a month and a half ago, there was a story that came out. First it was Google, and then it was Apple. And what they're doing is when you say, hey, Siri, what's the weather? Hey, Siri, can I blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
That is there was a potential. It wasn't everybody, and it was that Apple said it was a very small percentage of it. Look, it's
Yes, it's
doing
answer.
this
It's
thing.
I'm Siri over here. I'm gonna have to turn this. Stop it, Siri.
I thought it was supposed to recognize your voice, not mine.
Well, yeah, I think you sound alike. Go ahead.
So, a percentage of these recordings, Apple said it was, I think, less than 1%.
Yeah.
Was going to a processing area in another country, and people were literally transcribing what you said.
The whole point being to try to improve how
using
Siri
it
answers.
to improve Siri.
Yes.
Now, if you think about that from a tactical, logical standpoint, of course, they need to test these things in a real world. You can beta all you want,
Yeah.
but you need,
You need
real world
human
feedback.
ears. Yes.
The
right.
problem with that was Apple never told us it was going on.
Well,
Neither did Google.
No.
Had Apple had a switch.
To let you opt in rather than forcing you to opt out.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
they didn't even have the opt out. They had nothing.
They do now.
They do now.
Yeah.
That's so if that question is talking about I want to leave Siri on, but I don't want them listening to my conversations.
Yeah.
Apple listening to my conversations at some point.
Yep.
In iOS 13.2,
Yeah.
they did introduce a toggle, and it's in
I think it's
privacy.
Privacy, yeah. And there's a variety of Siri
I don't-
settings. And also one thing to remember when you're installing the new operating system, when you get an update for iOS to 13.2, you do get an option to be able
Yes,
to turn that
it
on or
tells
off,
you
or
it
allow
from the
Apple to
start.
listen in. So you can turn that off before you even update to the
Let
latest
me
version.
see if I can find that. Watch me not.
I
find
looked
it.
in privacy, and there's a variety of Siri settings there about what you can do that will limit it. So short answer is you can do that.
You
Apple is aware
yes.
of it. There was a controversy about it. I actually have it turned off. I'm not being a very
Look at
good
you.
Apple corporate
Don't you?
citizen here.
Yeah,
but,
aren't you supposed to?
So turn that off if you're worried. While you keep looking, I'm going to go to the next question just in case we have trouble finding that. Question 5. Does the new dark mode in iOS save battery life on iPhones? A little bit of a controversy here. I'm going to
Yes.
say yes.
I mean, I'm going to say yes too.
Because there have been some studies that show, I believe what the one that I saw, I can't remember what website it was on, but basically they had the phone in 100%, had it running in, with the lighter mode, whatever that's called, day mode. And then they also compared it to using the phone in dark mode, which is where everything is black and dark, especially on the phones with OLED screens. There was a 30% gap in how quickly the battery went down.
That's crazy.
At the point that the phone running the lighter version of iOS was at 0, the phone running the darker version, dark mode, was still 30% of a charge. Again, that can vary, depends on what you're doing with your phone, how often you use it.
I mean, well, for one, you
But
need
in
to
general-
have screens on that are taking advantage of that dark mode.
Well, that's OLED. I mean, it makes a
But
it
like
makes
if
sense
you're
because,
looking at Safari
Yeah.
or a movie
right,
or anything,
yeah.
you're not really the dark mode only comes into play when you're on the home screen or the
Right.
lock screen,
Or you've got,
a status
if you're
bar
scrolling
thing,
through,
or-
something on Twitter or something, and you've got, you have a dark mode version where large chunks of the screen are black, because in dark mode on an OLED screen, if it's black, the pixels are off, so they're not using any juice.
yes,
So that's why.
but those are on only certain screens.
Correct.
I can't imagine 30% of the time, unless you have it on that screen constantly.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody should assume you're going to find 30% better battery life all the time running dark mode. It really depends on how you use your device. But there are some studies and indications that it does help, at least at the margins.
Yes,
I think
yes.
that's a fair
No, I think
answer.
that's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not doing it just because it looks cool.
No.
Yes, it does. I mean, whatever. Personal choice. I like dark mode, and
I do
have
too.
it on my phones and my computer and all that stuff. But
Ditto.
the reason why is because of the OLED efficiency.
Right.
You don't really get that on the iPhone 11 because it's using an LCD.
Right.
So you're still backlighting.
Yep.
Plus, it doesn't look as good because it's instead of true
It's
black,
not really black. It's
really,
kind of gray.
really, really dark gray.
It's dark
Yeah.
gray, yeah.
But yeah, on the OLED screens, for sure, you're saving something. 30% seems a bit high. to
Again,
me.
I said it was controversial.
But
Cynical
controversial.
you.
I just-
Cynical you comes again. I should check and see if we've got any questions from people who may be listening in the comments field.
Oh my goodness, we have a lot of questions.
Okay. Ooh,
So-
I'm scared.
Hopefully, it's not about
All
Siri
right, I'm
privacy because I
scared.
can't find it.
Okay.
Well, a couple people are surprised, or they don't know that iOS and iPadOS are now two different
Yeah,
things.
that just happened.
That just happened
Yeah.
this year.
So they want to know what the differences are.
Okay. You use one.
Yeah,
You can start.
Well, I can. Oh, thanks a lot. Actually, very simply, with iPadOS, there are things like being able to have two apps on the screen at the same time, split down the middle. You can slide them back and forth. one
Which
larger-
was allowed before.
Yeah, but now you can copy and paste
Yes.
between them. And you can also have what's called slide over, which allows you to open up basically a third app, which kind of hovers over the other two apps. You can move that off screen, move it on screen. The whole idea here was, I believe, not being cynical, was to sort of basically position the iPad as more of a computer-like
Yeah.
with these features. And
And
that's different from the iPhone.
The home screen is slightly different. There's more apps, and you can put widgets
You've got your
on,
dock, your
off
big
to the
long
left.
dock, and you can
Yeah.
add docks, and you can have...
I think it was 40-something apps now you can have on your screen as opposed to like whatever the number is.
You mean in terms of the resolution and the size of the
yeah,
icons?
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't think
On a single screen.
possible.
It went up a
Up a
lot.
lot, yeah.
I know that much.
Well, 3, 6 by 530.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Whatever it was before, it's more.
anyway, the whole point here, Michael thinks it's just cynical marketing speak on Apple's part, and/or allowing Apple to pitch.
I mean,
the
it is because
iPad
they
is a
come
different
out the
device.
same time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not, they're separate in the sense that they have different names.
Yeah.
But they're not separate and said that this is on the same version as
Yes.
this.
Yeah. They're pretty much doing.
So
the same thing.
it is. There's a lot of marketing involved in it. But
There are features that
all
specifically.
right, what does
do,
it say when you upgrade? Did it say iOS 13 or iPadOS 13?
You know what? Let me look and see. While I'm looking, let's go ahead and get the next question from Michelle.
Well, it's related to iPadOS and iOS updates. So they're like looking, when you go to get an update, is going to be in the same place? How are you getting your updates for each one?
Yeah. They
Apple pushes
settings, general software update, and it will appear there. And I'm looking at his software update, and it says
13.
13.3, which is the same as the
But it doesn't say
the
iPad
numbers
or iOS.
correlate.
Right. There is some marketing speak here.
Some.
A little bit. Next question. Yes.
Any thoughts on new features coming to the iPad?
Oh, interesting. What do you think the iPad should have next?
I would like to get rid of the icons from the home screen, please. I hate them. I've
Just
always hated
lose them
them
completely?
Yeah.
I
Give me
actually
a-
want more.
give me-
I'd like to cram more
Give me-
icons. No, seriously. That's
Well, all right, here's a question for you. Do you have a bunch of icons on your Mac?
no.
Thank you.
No.
So why do you want them on your iPad?
It's different. It's a different
Oh, I
device.
see.
It's
Because Apple tells you so.
Because Apple lets me. Because Apple lets me do
They
that.
let you do it on the Mac too. You just don't.
Well, it's true.
Put them in a folder.
But I'm more OCD.
Give
I'm more
me,
OCD on
I
my
want-
Mac than I am on my iPad.
What's this thing called? Launchpad. I
Yeah.
want that for the iPad.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I don't have it. So that's one. I would also like better multitasking is such a lame term.
Yeah.
But what I want something that's not quite a Mac, but not quite the iPad.
In terms of multitasking?
Yeah, like I want
Like-
floating windows.
Well, slide over is a floating window.
Yeah, but you're limited. You only do
You want
one.
multiple
I
floating
want-
windows.
Yeah.
You want to make it more Mac-like.
But
With a file structure like that?
well, I mean, I guess. I mean, that's kind of there.
Yeah.
What I guess what I really want is I want to, like, when I hit an app,
Mhm.
I don't want to have to open the whole screen to get to what I want. Maybe I want like a touch and hold haptic feedback thing, or haptic what's it called? Haptic touch,
Yeah.
where I can touch and hold and I get like a little window that I can use and then close it.
Right.
Like I don't like every time I open an app on my iPhone, I fill the whole screen. That's fine because
Yeah.
it's
It's small
6 inches.
screen,
Yeah.
right.
When I do that on the iPad, which I have an old one. I have an iPad Pro from years ago that I use.
Yeah.
But I'm forced to open the whole screen. Everything's. I don't have that on my Mac. I can open up a screen. I can still see what's behind it. I can go back and forth. So I want a smarter method of multitasking on my iPad.
And it sounds like the ability to customize more.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to look at 40 icons every time I
about
turn
30?
on my screen.
I like my 30 icons. Next, do we have any more, Michelle?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I want to go back to what you guys were talking about with the updates. So just to clarify, is it better to do the automatic update, the iOS, when it's ready automatically, or wait until you are ready?
Yeah, that's a
Personal
that's a-
preference, I would say.
I-
I tend to do automatic updates, but I'm a little more,
Does it depend on how old your phone is? Like if your phone can't handle it?
No,
It
I mean,
won't be
yeah,
offered to you if
right.
Oh.
As long as the phone processor and whatever can handle it, it'll give you that option. I don't do
you do them manually.
automatic. Yeah, I'd rather do manual. The way I see it is, if it's something that needs to happen, Apple does push things every now and again
Yeah.
that are critical and have to be pushed.
Right.
I would
Security
rather,
updates.
and it does tell you
Yeah.
very quickly. There's a little, settings badge that said, "Hey, you have an update. Do you want to go?" I like having the choice,
Mm-hmm.
even though I just told everyone to do it.
Well, I think the reason I say that, I think for most people, I agree, and given what you do and the fact that you cover this, you may want to hold off and wait and see if there is an issue. I think for most people, setting it to automatic means that they will generally be set to them. They'll have the most recent version, including security updates.
Yeah,
and
well,
things
well,
like
one
that,
thing too-
without having to think about it again.
Yeah,
That's my rationale.
And those automatic updates only work if it's plugged in.
Right.
And
over 50% charge?
something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the watch. I'm not sure about the phone, but they generally happen overnight, like 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Apple's not going to just randomly, when you're walking around,
Stop.
just throw
Wait.
it
I got to get off the call. I've got an update coming in. Okay. So it sounds like personal preference there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some are more cautious and say do it manually. Some do it automatically.
Well, some don't do what Apple tells you to do.
Way. Cynical.
Okay, and what do you think is the coolest new feature on the iOS?
In iOS, I like dark mode. I really do. I think for me, that's
Yeah, dark mode's
because it's the UI. It's what you see all the time.
I just finished up an article where I compared the iPhone against what I thought were the 3 best Android phones: Samsung Galaxy S10, Pixel 4, and the OnePlus 7T.
Yeah.
And the
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I won't.
Go ahead.
Without
You can break
getting
some
into
news
well, all right, fine. The iPhone didn't win this year, which, believe me, I was as surprised as as
We're
anyone
going to start
knows,
it.
and I'm
Do
going to
not get into a food fight on the
well,
comment
believe
section,
me, I
please.
will. Tomorrow or Thursday or next week, whenever this thing launches, I'm going to get a ton of
Wait,
hate
before
mail.
wait, all right, real quick though. What do you like about iOS before we get
Okay.
into the?
So the one feature, and it's not a new feature,
Yeah.
but the one thing that I'm constantly saying that, man, I wish this was on all Android phones is Face ID.
Okay.
I love it. I want it on my Mac.
Yeah.
I want it on my front door.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
it is. It's fast.
The
it's
iDoorbell.
secure.
I can see it coming
it's,
now.
It's
Christmas
incredibly.
21.
Yes, seriously. It's the best biometric system by a country
That's a good
mile.
one. That's a good point. You make a
And
really good one. I like
listen,
that, yeah.
it's not new, although it is a little bit better on iOS, on the iPhone 11.
Yeah.
The camera is slightly wider.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
a little
faster.
better in the dark.
I mean, it. First of all, it's fast as hell. It immediately recognizes me. But what I really love is the notifications.
Mm-hmm.
So if my phone's sitting on the desk and I get a text, no one could read that until I look at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't expand.
Yeah.
Where on any Android phone, even Google, which has this,
Yeah.
they don't do that.
Okay.
And I like how I can close my eyes and someone can't put it up to my face. Like it is such a smart, secure system. I'm just in awe of it. And listen, man, 3 years
Yep.
or 3 versions.
Yep.
And Android's not even close.
Yep.
Google just came out with it. It is not
Still
the
not
same.
good.
Not
All
the
right,
same.
So Face ID and dark
So Face
mode
ID
are
is
the
my
things we like.
just like an overarching feature of the iPhone.
Now back to what you were saying. You've been comparing the phones.
Yeah.
These phones, and
So-
and the iPhone did not win.
It did not when
in your-
I picked the OnePlus 7T.
Okay.
And people are going to say I'm nuts. The camera's not as good, and it's not.
Yeah.
First of all, it's a relatively unknown company.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it, you know it.
Yeah, yeah.
We work in the business. Most people don't have any idea what OnePlus is.
They will after this video.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
At least 3 people. Go.
First of all, the price it's $600.
Okay.
You get 128 gigs of storage, which is better than the base model of both the iPhone and the Google Pixel phone.
Okay.
But what OnePlus has done over the years, they come out with 2 phones a year, and it's not just a money grab. Like they give you a better processor, they give you a better operating system. It's Android 10 out of the box, which you only get on the Pixel right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if you take the whole spectrum of what OnePlus is doing, the price, the value, of course. But also the camera upgrades over last year, the OS upgrades over last year. It's an OLED screen. They have in-display fingerprint sensor combined with face unlock. That it's not as
Does the face-
secure.
how does-
It's not 3D,
Okay.
but it's 2D. And if you combine that with the fingerprint sensor, it's that much quicker.
Okay.
And they just do a lot of thoughtful things in their phone. And then they say, you know what? We're giving you the best processor. We're giving you the best storage. We're giving you the newest OS and an OLED screen, and we're only charging you $600.
Yeah.
Which,
So
it ju-
value. It really comes down
but
to value.
it's
for you.
it's more than that.
Okay.
What it shows me is that Google and Samsung, like, what are you paying for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you do a spec-to-spec comparison, take the iPhone out of it for a
Mm-hmm,
second, with other Android phones, you're getting the same thing: 6 gigs of RAM, 6 or 8 gigs of RAM, 120 gigs of storage. The Snapdragon 855 Plus, it's even newer than the Galaxy S10.
Yeah.
Screen size 6.2, 6.3. I forget the exact size. 1080p, okay, fine. It's still really good. And you're paying $600
Yeah.
versus $1,000
It's
on
the
everybody
money.
else.
It's the money. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? Because how do I recommend someone to spend $1,000 on a Galaxy
When
phone?
you can get
It's a little bit nicer, sure. The camera's a little bit better, but you're still going to get great pictures and have a great phone. And I actually like the design best on the OnePlus 7T.
Cool.
And I just don't. And I'm going to charge Apple with a similar thing. You're paying $1,150 for your phone.
Yeah.
A lot of it
Mom,
is
you didn't hear that.
a lot of it is because of the logo on the back.
Yeah. I like my phone.
Of course, I do too. I like your phone also.
Okay. Well, we went a little bit of far afield there, but at least you get an idea. For,
Hey, man, you asked.
I know they asked, and
Well, we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to do 3 more,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
Try to make them quick here.
Sure.
So one is about security. Is iOS 13 safe from zero-day attacks?
generally yes.
I mean, generally, yes. Nothing is safe.
Yeah.
No,
In
but
the sense that
and I
these
would
things
argue
pop
that
up.
Android is too generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem with Android is you're allowed to sideload apps.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem
Well,
comes
that's
into
because
play.
the iOS is locked down.
Yeah, Apple does not allow you. So if something would have to get into the App Store onto your phone and then infect it, and that is extremely
Highly unlikely.
to
Not
happen.
impossible, but
Yeah.
highly unlikely. So generally, yes.
Generally, yes. I mean, 99.99999%. And when you read these articles about zero-day exploits, it's Android, and it's also the result of a
Somebody
third-party
gets
app
it into the
store.
system, yeah.
So we're, at this point in time, your phone is extremely secure
Yeah.
from that stuff.
Yeah. Next.
Okay, so someone wants to know how they can stay up to date on the latest bulletins about iPhone and iOS. Now I know Computer World always writes about it, but is there another?
Macworld.
Yeah,
in Macworld?
whenever a new beta comes out,
Mhm.
like a iOS 13.3 probably is out now,
Yep.
or maybe 13.
It is 13.3, yeah.
We'll write about it. We'll talk about the changelog, which sometimes just says bug improvements, but if there's a new feature, we'll spotlight it. And every 2 weeks when that comes out, we'll tell you. And when the public beta, I'm not public beta. When the
Final version,
the general
full
release
version.
comes out, we'll tell you about that as well. So we do stay on top of that. Alternatively, Apple lets you know as well. Their support pages are very robust and very easy to understand.
As are their forums for answering questions
and they're
if you're
right,
having an
absolutely.
issue.
So
It's
you can
people answering their own
you
questions.
can check out Apple discussions and the Apple support knowledge database, whatever they call it now, and you'll find all of that stuff. They're not always all that descriptive with what's in them.
It gets a bit technical sometimes,
The change
too.
log,
Yeah.
but you can find that stuff. Computer World, Macworld,
I would
and
say,
Apple.com.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, and here is this is the last one. This person's looking for one solid reason to
Uh-oh.
choose iOS over Android.
Ooh,
One
well,
reason.
Well, you're Mr.
I mean,
you're more of an. I'm going to let Michael. I'm going to defer to Michael on this because you do use
I
Android
use-
and iOS,
yes.
and you can compare them better. I'm an iOS guy, so I'm not going to be able to give you an objective view.
I mean, it's a timeless reason, and that's upgrades. Unless you're getting a Pixel,
Like software upgrades,
Yeah.
system upgrades.
Yeah. Unless you're getting a Pixel phone, and even then, it's not as good. I have an iPhone 6S.
Mm-hmm.
When did that come out? 2016?
2015,
15?
16? Yeah, 4 or
And
5 years ago.
That's still getting iOS upgrades
Mhm.
the same time as my iPhone 11. That's remarkable. You don't get that on. There's no Android phone ever made that delivers that.
Okay.
And I'll give you another example. The November security update for Android,
Mm-hmm.
which should go out to 6 phones. I didn't get it on my Pixel 4. Oh, it's in my pocket.
Yeah.
I didn't get it on my Pixel 4 until this morning. It's what is
Today's
it?
November 18th, 19th?
19th. It's November. So that is 2.5 weeks
Yeah.
after it was released. Now, that's literally Google's phone,
Mhm.
Google's operating system, and they waited 2.5 weeks to push that.
Okay.
On my iPhone,
So you have the answer.
App-
Upgrades.
but-
That would be the one answer.
because when Apple releases iOS 13.2,
Boom.
every single phone has it at
Has
the same
access
time.
to it. They don't.
Yeah, right.
It's not automatically
No,
downloaded,
right.
but they have access
you get
to it.
it gets pushed to it's not a rollout.
Right.
It's not
It's there.
you'll get it when you get it. That was literally Google's response.
Yeah.
We a bunch of people wrote an article, including myself, and Google's response was on their forums, it'll come, quote, in the coming weeks. Like that is not an answer.
Yeah.
Apple pushes their updates to everybody at once at the same time, and that's it.
Yeah.
Done. And that is, it's not just peace of mind. You know when you buy an iPhone 11 in 2024,
You'll still be getting.
you'll still be
updates.
getting updates. That's you cannot get that on Android. Now there are a host of reasons why you should buy Android instead of iPhone,
Mhm.
but that is the number one reason why I would recommend this phone over anything else.
Okay. Good. That's a great answer. Great questions too. Very much appreciated the questions and the comments. Michael, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
I think we got to a lot of stuff. We'll be
Yeah.
doing this again, I'm sure. Quick reminder: we've been streaming on the IDG Tech Talk YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you like what you're watching. We're also live streaming on the LinkedIn page for Computer World. Please follow that page. We're going to take a break next week, but the week after that, first week of December, we're going to be back with a discussion about AI and ML. And so please tune back for that. In the meantime, thanks for watching.
Thank you.